Welcome into Nets Pod with Sarah Kustok, presented by Ticketmaster. Thrilled to have another edition, and with someone who is family to me. Kendall Gill, 15-year NBA career. You were the number 5 overall pick by the Charlotte Hornets. But through your years, you also spent 6 New Jersey Nets, part of the Flying Illini, Final Four team. Just a tremendous, tremendous career. And now you are a part of the Chicago Bulls broadcast team. You have been for quite some time. But Kendall, first of all, thank you. Thank you for in our home of Chicago, Chicago's own. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time. But I want you to take us back. Take us back to when you were in college, when you were getting ready for the NBA, when you were thinking about this dream that you worked for your whole life, and just what it's like going as a pick. I mean, you end up going as the number 5 overall pick, but to know that there's that type of pressure, that type of anticipation for a dream that you worked your whole life for.
Well, you know what? Honestly, when I was a kid, I didn't like basketball. No. I didn't like it at all. And, you know, it's ironic that we lived on the south side of Chicago, and then my parents moved us out to the suburbs, and that's when I started playing basketball. Most kids in the inner city play.
So this is before you even go to Rich Central?
This is before I even go to Rich Central High School. So we move out, and I was a boxer, baseball, football player, and I just did not like basketball. So, but when we moved out to the suburbs, that's when I started to play basketball. And you know, it's ironic. I noticed that, you know, I was on the baseball diamond, right, and I was playing baseball, but I noticed all the girls were at the basketball court.
This story does not surprise me.
No, listen, they were watching the guys play basketball. So I said, you know what, let me go over there. And I went over and I started, and that's when it all started. And, you know, I liked the game. I liked the competitive aspects of the game. And I began to get better and better. And then the coach asked me to play. And, you know, it started from there. And, you know, when then I got better in high school, and then I said, okay, well, I can possibly turn this into a college career. Now, I went to 5-star, which, you know, back then they didn't have AAU. It was either 5-star or Rensselaer, Indiana, the Nike, I guess, ABC camp, I think that's what they called it.
Yes.
Yeah. So I went to 5-star, and that's really where I got discovered, you know, and, you know, I got an offer from Illinois and Michigan State and DePaul, Clemson, and Iowa State. Those were the 5 schools that I brought it down to. And, you know, I was going to go to Michigan State the night before I chose Illinois. I was. So I made up my mind that I was going to Michigan State. I was going to play for Judd Heathcote. And then that morning, I get up, and my family and my brothers, they all know that I'm going to make the decision that morning. So I remember going downstairs, and I'm ironing my pants, and I can hear my brother's footsteps coming down the steps. And he comes down the steps, and he comes into the laundry room, and he goes, "Where's it going to be?" And I looked up, and I said, "Illinois." It happened just like that. I don't know why I said.
You don't know why, so it just that it was.
For some reason, my body and I guess, you know, my subconscious mind just said, you need to go to Illinois, because I had made up my mind I was going to Michigan State the night before. But that happened, and you know, I went on to Illinois, struggled my first couple years, you know, for playing time. I played, but I mean, I wasn't, you know, a star or anything like that. And then my junior year is when everything turned around for me. You know, because I kept working.
Why? Yeah, what changed?
I just kept working, man. You know, and you know, I did not like sitting on the bench. I wanted to play. I mean, I'm a competitor, and you know, we had a great team that year. And you know, of course, that year, my junior year, we went to the Final Four, the famous Flying Illini team. So I wanted to be a part of that. Okay, and
Nick Anderson, Kenny Battle.
Nick Anderson, Kenny Battle, Stephen Bardo,
Marcus Liberty,
Lowell Hamilton, Larry Smith, Urban Small, and all those guys. And you know what's ironic about that team? Every single player was from the state of Illinois. So even the walk-ons. So we were truly a state team, you know, because we had no outsiders on that team. But when I went to college, I really wasn't aspiring to have a pro career. in basketball.
Because you didn't think it was possible, or that just
No, it's just.
what did you think you would do?
I
What was
thought it
plan
was
B?
possible. It's just that I thought, I always thought, okay, I'm going to go to Illinois and I'm going to get my degree and I'm going to go out and I'm going to get a great job and everything. So it didn't hit me until my junior year when we played LSU and Chris Jackson at the time, who's now Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf.
Yeah.
So I remember that game. I had like 27 points, and I played great against Chris Jackson, and all NBA scouts were there to see him. But they saw the Flying Illini too, and we ended up blowing LSU out. And Coach Jimmy Collins, who recruited us all there, who's a famous coach here in Chicago, may God rest his soul, he's no longer with us, but he came to me and he said, hey, you impressed a lot of NBA scouts today. That was the first time I had an inkling that I could be an NBA player. That was the first time. And after that, I just had incentive to work even harder, and that's when it happened for me.
So it happens, as I mentioned, number 5 overall pick. You go to Charlotte. You're playing with Muggsy Bogues. You got Larry Johnson.
Larry Johnson came the following year, then Alonzo Mourning the next year after that.
So what's that experience like, acclimating to the league and having that type of group and just the experience that you maybe weren't necessarily anticipating would even be happening?
It was kind of bittersweet because honestly, I told my agent, Arn Tellem, at the time, I said, I don't want to go to Charlotte, because one, they have Dale Curry and they have Rex Chapman, who was my friend.
Yeah.
And Rex and I played the same position. And I just was like, I don't want to compete against my friend, and they already got two guards there. That's my position. I wanted to go to Minnesota, the next pick, who had the 6th pick. They ended up picking Felton Spencer. But when they drafted me, I was like, oh, okay, well, I got to do what I got to do. I got to go down here. I got to compete. And, it was cool, though. I mean, they put me at the 1 sometimes and then Rex at the 2. But eventually they had to make a decision. And, they ended up trading Rex the following year, my second year. And but it was great playing with Muggsy Bogues, great playing with Larry Johnson, who is the best player I've ever played with.
Really?
Yeah, before he hurt his back.
Yeah.
Before he hurt his back, Larry was getting ready to be an all-time great. I mean, because nobody could stop him. Grandmama. Yeah, and people ask me, what was it like to play with him? He was a combination, and I say this all the time, LeBron James' strength. Well, no, LeBron James' athleticism, Hakeem Olajuwon's footwork, and Shaquille O'Neal's strength. That's what he was.
Wow.
All 3 of those combined. 6'7", 250 pounds with a 7'4" wingspan. And Sarah, he could do everything. I mean, and a great teammate. He could pass it, he could shoot it, he'd make the right basketball play every time. He had a high basketball IQ. It's just a shame that he hurt his back, because if he had not hurt his back, man, that guy was going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the next year we got Alonzo Mourning. We ended up beating Boston in the first round of the playoffs, then ended up playing the New York Knicks, and I think we took them either 5 or 6 games. I can't remember. But that team was great. It's just unfortunate that I was young and I didn't understand what we had in Charlotte. And, I left as a free agent after my 3rd year in Charlotte. But I really wish I could have stayed there and played for 7, 8, 9 years with those guys, because had we all stayed together, we would have done something special.
So you go to Seattle, right? But then you're back to Charlotte before you get traded to the Nets.
Right. So you want to hear a funny story about that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So I get traded back to Charlotte, in which, deep down in my heart, I never should have left, and I never really wanted to leave. But you play with fire, sometimes you get burned. You don't know that as a young fella, but when you get older and more mature, you start to understand those things. But I was fortunate enough to get traded back to the place where I really wanted to be, and I'm playing great, and I bought myself a house in there. Actually, I bought myself a house right next to the house that I used to own when I left Charlotte. It was right next door. So,
Who was living in the house that you used to own?
I sold it to one of my friends. His name is Kerry. He used to make suits and everything, so I sold it to him. But then when I came back to Charlotte, the house next door was available. So I said, man, I can live in the same neighborhood and same house and everything. And I bought that one. So I'm playing great. I'm getting triple doubles. They got me at the point guard. Me and Larry are together again, and they ended up trading Zoe to Miami. You know, and that's when they started to dismantle the team when Zoe was traded. So I remember talking to George Shinn, and he says, Kendall, you know, I'm so glad you're back and everything. You never should have left. You know, you're going to be here for the rest of your career, man. He said, I said, well, you know what? I appreciate that, George. I said, I never really wanted to leave. So I can remember, I forget what game it was, but I was walking in the locker room after the game, and Bob Bass, who was the GM at the time, was on the phone in the training room. And I'm thinking, ain't no way I'm getting traded.
They just told me.
They just told me.
I'm here for life.
I'm here. You know, they said I'm happy. So Bob Bass is in the training room on the phone. And I was like, hey, Bob, who you in there trading? Right. So listen.
You.
Yeah. So listen. The next day, actually that day after the game we fly to Miami. So the next night I'm in Miami and I'm on I forget what street that is, South Beach, Ocean Avenue, or whatever that street is. But I'm feeling great. I'm having a great dinner with some of my friends, and we're sitting on the ocean. I'm where I want to be, and I just bought my new house, and I owned it 3 days, Sarah. 3 days, right? So my agent calls me, and he says, "Hey, I got some news for you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "What's up?" So he says, "You got traded." And I was like, yeah, right. I was like, "Stop, stop." Yeah, I said something else, but I said, "Stop effing around with me, So he's like, "No, I'm serious." And then I said, "I just talked to the owner a couple days ago." And then he goes, "Nah, they made a trade, man." And I didn't say anything for like 2 minutes. And he said, "You there? You there?" And I was just silent. And then I was like, "Okay, where'd they trade me?" And then he said, "To New Jersey." And I was like, "Oh." I'm like, "Cool, I can live in New York."
Okay.
So I was just glad they didn't trade me to like Utah or Sacramento or someplace, something that's like totally not me, So, but I'm still disappointed. But I know I'm going to the Nets. I know I can live in New York City. I know I can be in the New York metropolitan area because, I'm from Chicago. You're from Chicago. We're city people.
Yeah.
So I was happy about that. I was also happy that, if I was going to be traded, that I would be traded where I can play exclusively at the two-guard position, because at the time I was playing point guard.
Right.
And they had Chris Childs there. They had Armand Gilliam, who I had played with, and, a number of other players. So
Before we get to your time with the Nets, even looking now and where the league's at, what's the hardest thing to understand as a young individual, a young man, that it really is a business and the balance of that, having to deal with being traded?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, outsiders are always looking at teams and rosters, but what it's like to uproot your life and have to be in a different place the next day and reacclimate yourself to a new group.
It's tough if you have a family. If you were single like I was at the time, it was so much easier. I mean, it's culture shock, because now the house that you've owned for 3 days, and you just like, I laid my head on the pillow like this and I had to get up, and go. And that's the hard part when you've laid down some roots, and now you just got to totally pick up everything and go someplace else and start new. I can't imagine what that's like for families that have to pull the kids out of school and the wife who's established, her own life there. She has to uproot and go and start again. That's the tough part. But you got to know going in that this is a business, and, that the only real loyalty is to yourself. That's what I found out through, my years in the league. Of course, you got to be loyal to your team while you're with them, but you got to understand there's an underlying thing where you're just really a commodity.
You mentioned New Jersey and playing for the Nets, and you've had a ton of success there. You have career high 41 points. You have an NBA record, 11 steals. What stands out most about that time with the Nets and with that organization?
A lot of ups and downs. I can remember when John Calipari came in, and he started off he changed the culture right away, which was good. I mean, he came in as coaching as a college coach. We had to call, hey Cal, this ain't UMass, because he used to yell all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you can't do that over 82 games. Maybe you can do it in college for 30 something, but not 82 games. And also, you're dealing with grown men. Grown men are just like you that have families, that have wives, kids, and everything. So, there's a way you have to go about getting your point across to these guys rather than kids in college. So, I think that was the one thing that Cal had to learn quickly. And he did. He adjusted. I mean, he still yelled, but I mean, he toned it down a lot. But I think that Cal was the starting point to the team later on, going to 2 NBA finals in a row, to getting the players like Jason Kidd, Keith Van Horn, Kerry Kittles, and those guys. So. I was part of the beginning stage of what they were building themselves into. So, I wish I could have stuck around for, those championship runs, but it just wasn't meant to be. However, I loved my time with the Nets now. I was playing well, and I got to live in New York. I got to live on 43rd and 11th Avenue.
Watch out.
And let me tell you, that was some of the best times of my life. Being single in New York City, and being a professional athlete, it was the best.
Stories for the Nets at Night podcast.
Yeah.
I'm gonna list some of your teammates, and I want you briefly describe them for me. Kerry Kittles.
Fundamentally sound, professional, talented. Came to work every day and put it on the line. He earned everything that he got.
What about Sam Cassell?
Sam talented like crazy, man. But one of the funniest guys off the court you would ever. Yeah, he was just. One thing about Sam is, and I didn't understand this about Sam when I was playing with him, but later on over the years, I understood it. Sam he never really took the game seriously or himself seriously. You know what I mean? So that's why he always had fun, and that's why he was successful, because he never was too uptight about anything. He was always just free flowing, and a guy could play. So. Sean
Bradley.
Sean, long man. Block shots, was just freakishly tall. And talented too.
Yeah.
I saw Sean give a lot of NBA centers a lot of problems, on certain nights, and they just couldn't deal with his length, and his height, and he was also athletic as well at 7'6".
Chris Gatling,
left-hand assassin. Now, you pass it to him, you ain't getting it back. Okay? Because Chris is like Kevin McHale. When you give it to him, he's going to score.
Nothing compares to catching your Brooklyn Nets live, and nobody knows that better than you. Nets fans, it all starts with buying tickets at Ticketmaster, the official ticket marketplace of the Nets and the NBA. Ticketmaster gets you to the game so you could experience all the sights, sounds, and styles in person. Put that jersey collection to use for the next game and get Nets tickets at Ticketmaster. Even if you're headed to the game last minute, Ticketmaster's got your back when it comes to scoring tickets. And there's no better brag than saying you saw it live. Get tickets at Ticketmaster.com/Nets.
Do you have a favorite Nets teammate?
Chris Childs. But Chris was only with the Nets briefly. and then he went to the Knicks. And I loved playing with him because he was a pure point guard. He was a competitor. He defended every night. He was hard-nosed, and he just got my respect right away. There's a lot of guys in the league a few guys in the league that I respect immensely. Nate McMillan, Muggsy Bogues, Rod Strickland. And I can put Chris Childs in there as well. Another of my favorite teammates on the Nets was Jason Williams and also Michael Cage. And Michael Cage is old, wily veteran, who calmed me down a lot. Because sometimes I was a hothead, Sarah.
That does not surprise me.
Sometimes I was a hothead, but Michael was my steadying veteran, the guy that calmed me down and would talk to me about certain situations.
How did you realize defense was your calling card?
Oh, I knew that from when I was a freshman in college.
So what's your philosophy? What would be your philosophy going into a game?
That you can't stop anybody in the NBA. It's just too good. They're in the NBA for a reason. It's a reason why, because they can score the ball, and they can play. My philosophy is always to make everything difficult. And the year I led the league in steals, and the year I got the record for steals, I went into games where I felt like I was Deion Sanders. They wouldn't even throw the ball on my side of the field. Yeah. I mean, it got to that point where they would run their offense away from me.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, I just have a knack for stealing the ball. My anticipation. I also read defenses very well, and I watch film and things like that. Honestly, I think that there's a couple of guys in the league now that could possibly get the record. I hope they don't. You know how people say, well, records were made to be broken.
You don't want it broken.
I don't want it broken. But like the kid from Atlanta, I forget his name.
Dyson Daniels?
I believe that's his name, Dyson Daniels. Yeah, he does a lot of the same things that I do. Yeah. I did rather. Where he uses this, where he slaps the ball from behind, tricks where you can go up the center of a guy's hands when he's holding the basketball like that. He does the exact same thing. I'm like, oh shit.
We're going to get into your toughest players to defend, but before that, you also are a professional boxer.
Yeah.
37 years old, you made your professional debut.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Tell us about what it was like having played in the NBA, countless NBA games. What was it like training to box in a professional match, and just the emotions that went behind it, the conditioning that goes behind it, just everything about that whole different aspect of your athletic life?
Well, I boxed when I was a kid. My mom and dad in the summers used to send us to a day camp on 83rd and Racine on the south side of Chicago. And that's where I learned how to box. And how I learned how to deal with bullies is it was at that day camp as well. So they had this one guy who used to walk around, mean face, everything like this, and everybody was terrified of him. So one day the boxing coach put me in the ring with him, and I was like, oh my God, I don't want to fight this guy. I don't want to fight it. I thought the guy was going to kill me. He rang the bell. I had my headgear on, gloves, everything, and then I just started boxing the guy. And then I'm like, oh, okay. All right, I'm doing pretty well. Okay, now the bully's face is starting now to not be so tough, So that's when I really became, I guess, a competitor and not fazed by fake toughness of guys when I was a little kid. And so I started boxing then, and then of course we moved to the suburbs, and I couldn't box anymore. So I played basketball, and then later on, throughout my pro career in the off seasons, I started to study jiu-jitsu for 6 years, and then I studied Muay Thai boxing for 6 years. And after I retired from basketball, I was like, okay, I'm going to go and realize my dream. I always wanted to fight and have a professional fight. I'm going to go and do it. So got together with some trainers that had trained me, during my pro career, and we started to get serious about the training. And when I tell you that basketball is like kindergarten compared to boxing.
Really?
Oh, it's the toughest thing ever. I mean, because Sarah, I mean, you know,
Kendall's been training me for decades now. It feels like, but I'm winded. You're not even swinging at me, and I can last 2 minutes.
Yeah, but you last all 3 minutes. But you know how tough it is to last 3 minutes. And when we train, you're just throwing punches. You're not getting out of the way of punches or, defending or moving your feet. So all of those things go into it.
Were you nervous before that first fight?
Was I nervous before the first fight? Yeah, I was. I mean, because everybody was coming to see what I could do.
It was a big deal here in Chicago.
Yeah, it was a big deal, but, I just didn't want to get beat, and I was so nervous. But the one thing that I found out about boxing when you get under the lights is when you get hit with the first punch, all that nervousness goes out the door. It does. I mean, I thought that I would, be terrified, but after the guy hit me the first time, I was like, okay, that's it, and then, you go to work. So, but it is tough, and when they say that you don't play boxing, you don't play boxing. I can tell you this story. I don't think I ever told you this story. My trainer called me in and he said, listen, I want you to spar with the novice Golden Gloves champion. I'm like, okay. So I go in, and I hadn't been training. I hadn't been doing my road work. I've been half-assed doing my floor work. And so I'm sparring with the guy, and I'm doing pretty good in the first round. But by the second round, I got so tired, okay? And then all of a sudden, I hear the 30-second bell. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to make it out of the round, and I'll get a chance to take a break. Next thing I know, I was jumping rope. And I'm jumping rope. And then I asked my trainer, I was like, how did I get this rope in my hand? And then he goes, you don't remember? And then I was like, no. He says, you got knocked out. And then I go, what? He said, yeah, give me the rope. You got a concussion. He said, I want you to go home right now. So I was playing with boxing, and I ended up getting dropped and not knowing what had happened. So it was a humbling moment because I'm thinking I'm this big, professional athlete, athletic, I can do anything I want. But no, you got to put your work in that ring.
Jump to your other work, broadcasting.
Yeah.
You've been doing with Chicago Bulls now for quite some time successfully.
Yeah.
How different do you view the game now as opposed to when you played, and what things are like watching the evolution of it?
Game is a lot different now. Game has been engineered to promote scoring at the highest level.
How would you fit in the NBA now?
Oh, I love it. You can't touch me. You know what I mean? You can't hand check me or anything like that. I mean, I was watching Ayo Dosunmu play the other day. He's having a great year, by the way, and if the Bulls start winning, he could possibly be a Sixth Man of the Year candidate. But Ayo does not shoot any mid-range shots. If he is wide open, he will not shoot a mid-range shot. He will either shoot a three or he's taking it all the way to the glass. And that's the way the analytics have made the game now. You see all of these crazy scores, 140, 150 points. That was unheard of back when I played. I think that the league have given the offensive players the ultimate advantage. First, no physical contact by hand checking. They let them travel all over the place. And they've opened up the lanes to let the guys go to the rim. So, it's a lot different. And also, like we're dealing with this right now with the Chicago Bulls. There are so many injuries. I think that the pace of the game and the way that the guys train 24/7, 365 days a year.
You think it's just a build-up?
It's just you're going. It's inevitable that you're going to get injured. When I was playing, most of the guys took at least a month and a half off where they didn't do anything. They just let their bodies rest. I mean, you look at Dame Lillard, you look at Jason Tatum, you look at Halliburton. All those guys played in the Olympics. They never took a break. And then all of a sudden they come back and they go through another long NBA season, and then something is bound to happen. So if I was to give any advice to any of those guys, I'd say, take a month or a month and a half off at least.
You never gave anyone nights off, so we're going to get to our hot ticket presented by Ticketmaster.
Okay.
Experience your Nets live with Ticketmaster, the official ticket marketplace of the Brooklyn Nets. Who were your top 5 hardest players to guard in the 90s?
Okay. Number 5.
So you're starting from
Number
least
5.
to
And
most.
I did a top 10 list years ago.
You want to give us 10?
I can give you. I can go back to my list and give you 10. Yeah. Okay. So
Start with 5. We'll
Start
do
with
5 for
five?
now. We'll do 5 for now.
Okay. All right.
Number 5.
Number 5, from what I can remember, was believe it was Vince Carter.
Really?
Number 5.
Why?
The reason why is because Vince was a freak athlete. Not only did he have a 40-something inch vertical jump, he had very long arms, which made it twice as hard to guard him.
Yeah.
And he could shoot the basketball from anywhere, and he had a lot of skill with his play. Number 4 was Reggie Miller, believe it or not. And a lot of people say, well, Reggie didn't have all this stuff. I used to have to take Advil before the game because I knew I was going to be sore. You know why?
Why?
Because Reggie ran through so many picks. And when you got the Davis boys and Rick Schmitz and all those guys setting picks for him, I mean, and Reggie just could run all day. I mean, one of the guys who I think possibly could have been a fighter because of his endurance.
Really?
Yeah. And he could run all day, and he would run through all these picks and everything. It was just so hard to guard him. I would be sore after the game, you know.
Number 3.
Grant Hill. Grant Hill, man, before.
Tell us about Grant.
Much like Larry Johnson, if Grant Hill had not hurt his ankle, we're talking about a guy that could possibly be a top 5 guy of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, at 6'8", it was his dribble. And the thing is that people, they understand this now because guards understand now that if you're able to handle the basketball, you can go wherever you want to go on the floor. Grant could do that at 6'8", and he could post you up, and he had mid-range. Didn't really have a three-point shot. I mean, he could hit it every once in a while, but his thing was his crossover dribble, his mid-range, and posting you up at 6'8", and he's running the point guard position.
Number 2.
Number 2, Michael Jordan.
I mean, I know we know why, but tell us why. Tell us from your perspective why.
Honestly, Michael was he was better than the game. He was, you know, and just fundamentally sound. Had no weaknesses at all. And he was so fast. And he's underrated strength. He was strong he was strong, man, you know. And also his competitive drive.
How much were you talking with him during the game? How much was he talking with you?
I never talked to him, you know, during the game because I knew, you know, just don't talk to him, you know, and you know. But I mean, I never backed down from him at all. But I mean, I just never got into a conversation with him over anything. I remember one day though, but Michael and I were friends off the court. You know, we played cards together. You know, we hung out here in Chicago together, and things like that. I mean, he's been over my house to play cards and stuff. So we were friends, but not on the court.
Right.
And you know, so I didn't really feel any need to talk to him, you know, on the court. And you know, I sort of looked at him like a big brother, but when we got on the court, we were competitors, you know, and he showed that every time he was on the floor.
Your number 1 toughest player to defend?
Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, former Chris Jackson.
Yeah.
He was the hardest person I've ever had to guard. You know, with MJ, I could,
Tell
you know,
us
because
why.
with MJ, you know, MJ 6'6", I'm 6'5". I could somewhat stay with MJ, even though he had sometimes big scoring games against me. But Mahmoud, I couldn't like get him like. With this forearm, which was one of the major things that I used. I could never get him, you know, where I could harness whatever he was doing. You know, I could slide with MJ. You know, I could slide with Kobe and Grant and those guys, and I could steal the ball and maybe block their shot every once in a while. But with Mahmoud, I couldn't touch him. He was too quick. To use a boxing analogy, he was sort of like Manny Pacquiao. You know, Manny Pacquiao throws a lot of punches and everything, so you can't see his punches coming. Mahmoud, you couldn't see his offense coming.
Wow.
You couldn't. You know, I can remember the first time I guarded him. He was at LSU, and I guarded him many times in the pros too. But Coach Lou Henson said, "All right, Kendall, you got him." So they tipped the ball off, right? And he's coming down. We're at LSU, and he's coming down the court, and all of a sudden I hear the crowd cheer, and I'm like, "What's the crowd cheering for?" He had already scored.
No.
I didn't even know it. That's how good he was.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, he gave people fits.
Last thing for you, is there one player or a player in the NBA that reminds you of yourself?
The way that they play Ant Edwards.
Okay.
A little bit. He's 6'4". We're almost the same size. I didn't shoot the three as much as Ant because I didn't have to. Today's game you have to shoot the three. But his athleticism, the way that he can handle the basketball, he reminds me of the way that I play. Also, there's this kid who's a freshman at Kansas now. I forget his name. He's probably going to be the first pick in the draft. But he reminds me of the way that I used to play as well.
Well, we love it. We feel like you can still play. And
no, I can't.
We show it on our broadcasts. You sparring with me, putting me through workouts. I tell the stories.
Yeah,
about
do you show the time you sucker punch me?
No, we didn't show the sucker punch time. We just show the sparring time. You made us push our cars through United Center parking lots, all the good things. But you are one of one. And Kendall, you are your family. So thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
On another edition of Nets Pod with Sarah Kustok, presented by Ticketmaster. Don't forget, you can always catch the latest episodes and previous episodes on the Nets YouTube channel. And like, subscribe, and listen anywhere you get your podcasts. Until next time.